welcome everyone to this session entitled Democracy Under Restrictive Environment, co-hosted by ANFREL and also the May 18 Memorial Foundation. So in recent years, some countries in Asia has been undergoing democratic backsliding, and it became worse under the backdrop of COVID-19. For example, in Hong Kong, they enacted the national security law, and the Legislative Council election was postponed, and now they changed the electoral system. In Cambodia, the main opposition party, CNRP, was dissolved a few years ago, and the ruling party, CPP, won all National Assembly seats in the election in 2018, and they became de facto one-party state since then. In Thailand, there has been more harassment against the dissidents recently, especially by using the Article 112 of the Criminal Code, or also known as the Lèse Majesté law. In Myanmar, I'm sure you already know they had the election in November last year, but the military launched a coup in February this year. So in this session, we will discuss the democracy situation in these countries, and as well as the challenges with our panelists today. First, I would like to introduce Aileen. Aileen Calverley is the co-founder and trustee of Hong Kong Watch. It is a UK-based charity which researches and monitors threats to Hong Kong's basic freedom, the rule of law, and autonomy. She is in regular contact with senior diplomats, policymakers, and parliamentarians in Canada, Germany, the UK, and US. She has spoken at parliamentary hearings on Hong Kong, and she is also frequently interviewed by media on Hong Kong issues. Next, we have Panha from Cambodia. He is currently the advisor for the Committee for Free and Fair Elections in Cambodia, COMFREL. And he's also the former executive director and former chairman of ANFREL from 2016 to 2019. Before that, he was also a program manager of Cambodian Human Rights and Development Association (ADHOC) before joining COMFREL. So in 2011, Panha received the Raymond Magsaysay Award in recognition of his work in the field of elections and governance in Cambodia. Next, we have Yingcheep Atchanont from Thailand. He has been working for iLaw since 2009, and he's the program manager since 2014. So under the military government previously, iLaw has been monitoring laws and policies issued by the junta to restrict people's rights and freedom of expressions, including the political trials in military court and also the enforcement of the Lèse Majesté law. In 2020, iLaw collected more than 100,000 signatures to propose a constitutional amendment to abolish the coup maker's power. And iLaw also monitors and documents data of more than 1,000 protests in these 2 years since 2020. And we also have a panelist from Myanmar, Mya Nandar Thin. Nanda is the former executive director of Election Education and Observation Partners, EEOP, and the founder of the New Myanmar Foundation. She has been involved in election observation since 2012 and has been at the forefront of local capacity building for CSOs in Myanmar. She also actively built local election networks to do both election observation activities and voter education activities. She led the EEOP election observation mission during the 2015 and 2020 general elections in Myanmar. So without further ado, I would like to invite the first speaker, Aileen, to share about the current democratic and human rights situation in Hong Kong. And so we'll go by each speaker, and lastly, we'll have a Q&A session, and feel free to put your questions in the Q&A chat box, and we'll answer these questions at the end. Thanks. Yeah, Aileen, please.
Great, thank you. Thank you for everyone giving me this opportunity to share with you the situation in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong's future hangs by a thread, from the arrest of pro-democracy newspaper owner to the imprisonment of democratic lawmakers. China's Beijing's intention with the new national security law are clear. They want to crush dissent, smash the city's human rights safeguard, and shatter the firewall between mainland China and Hong Kong. China's Hong Kong policy and the enactment of the national security law are in clear violation of its international obligations under the Sino-British Joint Declaration. Over 10,000 pro-democracy protesters have been arrested since June 2019. Over the past few months, Hong Kong's situation has continued to deteriorate. Since the national security law comes into force in July 2020, over 100 pro-democracy activists and politicians have been arrested. They could face 10 years to life in prison. The national security law has become the most actively used tactics to silence voices of opposition. Democracy itself has become the principal target of this new law. The Hong Kong government and Beijing officials in Hong Kong have used the threat of national security law to crush dissent and undermine democracy by disqualifying 12 pro-democracy candidates who won primaries and threatened over 600 Hong Kongers who turned out to vote for them in the primary election in July 2020 last year. The government then postponed the election. In February this year, 47 pro-democracy activists who participate in the democratic primaries in July 2020 for the Legislative Council election were charged with subversion of state under the national security law. Among 47 activists, 36 were denied bail and have been put behind bar. The city has a long history of an independent judiciary, and the rule of law is the cornerstone of its success as a global financial center. The Hong Kong government has frozen the financial assets of Jimmy Lai, the pro-democracy activist and owner of Apple Daily newspaper. Hong Kong's Security Minister, John Lee, invoked Article 43 of the National Security Law, which gives the Hong Kong Security Bureau and Beijing the power to freeze the assets of any individual or company within the city. Beijing's decision to freeze Jimmy Lai's assets with a stroke of a pen and without due process under the national security law is an abuse of power. This decision undermined the rule of law and vandalized Hong Kong's status as an international financial center. Nobody can be certain who next will have their assets in Hong Kong safe under the national security law. A recent report by Hong Kong Watch on Red Capital found that the speed at which Beijing has dismantled Hong Kong's autonomy has been made possible by economic coherence and the steady takeover of the city's economy through the influx of capital from mainland. Hong Kong is the canary in the coal mine. It provides a stark lesson on the cost of economic dependence on Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party ability to co-opt businesses and utilize economic leverage to great effect. Asian countries need to be very wary of over-dependence on China's economy. For the foreign press, this has come in the form of visa denials, and in the BBC case, an outright ban. Local journalists fare far worse, risking fines or imprisonment for reporting, as was the case for the investigative reporter Bao Choi, who was recently fined for exposing police corruption. Hong Kong authorities have also called for the closing of Apple Daily Media Firm, the last pro-democracy newspaper in Hong Kong, directed the public broadcaster to purge investigative documentaries from its online archive. And the Hong Kong Police Commissioner has warned that the national security law could be used in the future to target the spreading of the so-called fake news. documentaries and news programs were also being removed from archive. The announcement by the Beijing government of a list of individual overseas wanted under the national security law validate the authorities' worrying claim to oversee jurisdiction, its ability to target foreign nationals, and the fact that the law will be applied retrospectively. It is extremely concerning that 6 Hong Kong activists living in the UK, Germany, and the US are now all under the wanted list under this national security law. These activists are accused of inciting secession, colluding with foreign forces. In the courtroom, things do not fare much better. Judges are handpicked by Beijing, juries denied, and bail hearings now go on so long that there are reports of defendants collapsing and needing medical treatment. In the recent bail hearings of the 47 pro-democracy activists for the crime of organizing democratic primary election, the judges consider only 2 narrow facts: the public profile of the accused and the record of opposition to government policy. Aside from the continuous political prosecution, the Chinese Communist Party's rubber stamp parliament in Beijing passed a resolution a few weeks ago, overhaul Hong Kong's electoral system, remove most of the direct election seats in the Legislative Council. This move is a serious violation of the Sino-British Joint Declaration. More than 380 district councillors of the Democratic camp are also expecting to face potential disqualification in the coming months. It is now almost impossible for pro-democracy candidates to run for local election. Universal suffrage has become an empty promise in the basic law. University student unions in Hong Kong have been the cradle of social movement in the past. Universities have decided to cut ties with student unions, cease financial assistance, and take back all possible resources, including the venues for student unions. Tiananmen Square massacre, artwork by famous dissident and artist Au Weiwei was taken down. Screening of a documentary about the Sage of Polytechnic University was cancelled. Nomination of the protest-related documentary Do Not Split also seems to be the reason for Chinese broadcaster not to air the Oscar ceremony for the first time in over 50 years. Books have been pulled from libraries' shelf, and school curriculum have been reshaped to include brainwashing national education elements. Teachers have been disqualified over complained about material related to value of freedom and democracy. Under a haze of Beijing's escalating crackdown, many Hong Kongers were left with no choice but to leave the city. However, the new immigration bill amendment has passed. Relocation may soon no longer be possible. The new bill gives immigration officials at the border control unlimited power to stop anyone from leaving or entering Hong Kong, giving the Chinese Communist Party similar tactics used against Uyghurs. There's a concern that the law will be weaponized as a tool to restrict freedom of movement and prevent Hong Kongers from seeking asylum or applying for libel policy elsewhere. The continuous violation of the Sino-British Joint Declaration are a clear reflection of the Chinese Communist Party's untrustworthiness, turning a blind eye to Beijing's ongoing human rights violation and disregard of international rule-based order is no different from encouraging the escalating repression at home and aggression abroad. For too long, Carrie Lam and CCP officials have been able to act with impunity, suspending freedom and violating human rights. We recommend the participants and participating organizations in GDF and May 18 Memorial Foundation urge international community and Asian countries to take actions. This covered a comprehensive strategy of diplomacy, leverage, and sanctions, which should be the bedrock of international response with international partners to the crisis in Hong Kong. We believe that targeting Hong Kong and Chinese officials is a deterrent, ensuring that continual violations of human rights are met with a steep price, which includes the restriction of travel, financial sanctions. Targeted sanctions fall into a wider discussion about the international community's response to the Chinese Communist Party's expansionist strategy. Of course, Magnitsky sanctions on their own are not the whole answer. They should be part of a wider approach, which includes the offer of a lifeline to Hong Kongers, especially the young protesters who are in need to seek asylum, and the endorsement of the creation of the United Nations Special Envoy and Special Rapporteur for Hong Kong to monitor and report on the situation on the ground. We recommended the Korean government and civic society to be wary of becoming too close to authoritarian China and too dependent on its economy. It is time to wake up. We need to be looking at where Korean institutional investment is going and where China is targeting its investment. If we allow another 10 years of Beijing strategic investment for red capital across Asia to take place unchallenged, we should not be surprised if, when inevitably there are geopolitical flashpoints, we see a rerun of Beijing's domination of Hong Kong in other strategic geopolitical battlegrounds, or indeed on our own doorstep. Hong Kong is a canary in a coal mine. It shows why Korean researchers and government need to take red capital seriously, and policymakers need to find solutions. It's time to take action. It's time to stand up for Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thanks, Aileen, for the presentation. Next, we will have our panelists from Cambodia, Mr. Koul Panha. Panha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chung Lun. Yeah, I maybe not show the video. It should be okay. Yes,
yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to share the situation in Cambodia. I'm emphasizing on the situation of democracy and election. And I have a 6 point. I'm going to brief this 6 point to you. The issue of democracy in Cambodia. The first regarding the political environment. The second regarding the political rights and right to stand for election. And the third point, I'm going to brief the will of the voter and the right to vote. And the fourth regarding the EMB. The fifth regarding the law enforcement and the judicial system. And then the sixth regarding the role of the media and CSO in Cambodia. So the situation, democracy situation in Cambodia is deteriorating, severely deteriorating from political pluralism to the one-party political party system. Like 80, this at the time is the current ruling party control all the society, state institution. So now again, come back to the one-party system. The first one regarding political environment now is very oppressed, especially oppressed on the civil society, opposition party. Since the final elimination of the main opposition party, the Cambodian National Rikshu Party in November 2017, and the conduct of the July 2018 election, there has been a step backward for Cambodian democracy and election from the political pluralism to the one political party control is the current ruling party, namely Cambodian People Party, CPP. They fully control low and upper legislation seat, National Assembly, Senate, local council like commune council, subnational council. So they control all legislation, National Assembly and Senate, they control 100% of the seat. So no any opposition in the National Assembly. To secure a decade-long position in power, the Prime Minister Hun Sen and the ruling party changed the law, especially the law regarding the control of political power, law on election, law on political party, and also use the state institution like judicial system like court and law enforcement to oppress opposition. Especially they use the court, the Supreme Court, to dissolve the main opposition. So they also remove the elected official of the opposition from their position, and they also ban a significant number of the members of the opposition for participate or conduct any political activity for 5 years. There are recent situation also. There are a lot of charge against the opposition. At least 137 individuals of the opposition who support the return of the former president of the opposition, CNRP, Mr. Sam Rainsy, who intend to return to Cambodia in November 2019. But the individual, the people, the activists of opposition who support this the campaign return, they charge them with inciting to the violence. But actually, Sam Rainsy not able to come to return in November. This is a failed project. And also recently, the court also showed the verdict on the mass trial against the opposition and civil society. Since June 2019, at least more than 150 people associated with the opposition or associated with the exercise of the freedom of expression have been arrested, detained, and subject to the judicial proceeding. And recently, the court also handled the exile, the senior of the opposition to convict them like more than 20 years. So the entire process of trial have been tainted with the irregularity, breach of Cambodian constitution and the international law. The former opposition, CNRP, Mr. Sam Rainsy, and their senior leader was convicted to 25 years. And the another senior opposition leader, at least 8, they convict 20 to 22 years in imprisonment. This is a very, very disproportionate prison term that handed to the leader of opposition. And also at the same time, during this pandemic, there have been used an excuse to delay the trial of another leader of opposition, namely Mr. Kum Sakha. And Hun Sen, the Prime Minister, he ordered to delay the trial. You know, one leader of opposition, he ordered to convict them for 25 years, but another leader of opposition, Kum Sakha, he ordered to the court that they should postpone, not to delay the trial, because that he used that excuse to the pandemic situation. So this trial postponed until after communal election 2022, or beyond until 2023 National Assembly election. So he intentioned the ruling party and Prime Minister tried to prevent Mr. Kum Sakha return to join the election, because he stay in Cambodia. The reason he blocked him, at least he's not able to participate in the upcoming election. And also the rest, the former of the National Election Committee member, Mr. Rong Chun, he also the leader of the Cambodian Federation of Union, was arrested in July 2020 for his comment regarding the issue of the border. And many protesters, they demand to release Rong Chun. They was also arrested. At least 14 youth and environmental activists have been detained. So the situation is the restriction of the freedom of expression, the right to participate in political activity, the freedom of association, very, very severe restriction. At least a report from the human rights group called the annual Cambodian Fundamental Freedom Monitor. It's come from a human rights organization in Cambodia. They found out that at least 338 cases on the restriction of the freedom of association, 245 cases regarding the restriction of the freedom of the expression, 53 cases regarding the freedom of assembly. So just 1 year between mid of 2019 until mid 2020. And another, the second issue regarding the political right and right to stand for the election is also very severely restricted now. Since November 2017, the Cambodian Supreme Court ordered the dissolution of the opposition, the CNRP. They banned 118 members of the opposition for joining or conduct any political activity for 5 years. So they banned this because they used the new amendment of the political party law that unilaterally changed by the ruling party itself. But in 2018, when the international community pressure on them, especially EU, the ruling party and the government decide to amendment back the law on political party. The one article that the amendment they want they want to give the opposition politician to request the pardon in order to get the right to the political rights to participate in the upcoming election. So some bad opposition politicians did submit the request for the pardon to regain their political right, but however, many of them argue that there should not be give to individual like this. They should, you know, they should the government should do like request the whole list of opposition, 118 opposition, in order to allow them to return to the political to use the political rights rather than ask for pardon individually. And some of them also argue that they don't have guilty because the court not convict them. They only dissolve their party, but they themselves not convict. Why they have to ask for pardon? So right now, around 20 members of opposition among the 118, they did request for the pardon in order to regain their political rights. The number 3 is regarding the will of the voter and the right to vote. This already decline respect the will of the voter. Why? Because in Cambodian law is very bad if compared with another country. For example, in Thailand, when you dissolve the party, the law is not suggest to remove the elect official. But in Cambodian new amendment law, when you dissolve the political party dissolve, so all the elect official must be removed from their office. So the reason why the opposition member of parliament, opposition commune council, I mean local elect official, was removed from office. At least more than 5,007 commune council of the opposition was removed from the office, and then they distribute the seat of the opposition to other political party, and the ruling party give you know the ruling party they able to get the opposition seat, and other party not elect political party also get the opposition seat, and the NEC has the role to the National Election Committee has the role to distribute the seat of the opposition to other political party, even they not get elected. So this is a problem with you know again the will of the voter, because the voter is they vote for their own elect official, but finally their will have been rejected, you know, rejected by the law itself. And yes, it's regarding the situation of the will of the voter, and currently we found out that there are also problem with obstruct to right to vote. Also, some immigrants, some worker that they are living abroad, especially the migrant worker living abroad, living in Thailand or Malaysia, more than 2 million, they not able to get a voter registration because if they not return to Cambodia. So this is a problem among the 10 million of estimate eligible voter. At least 2 million they not able to register because they are living abroad. They work there. But however, COMFREL found out that the quality of voter list still good, at least 98% accuracy of voter name. The number 4 regarding the National Election Committee, I mean the EMB, the Electoral Management Body. This really under control of the ruling party now, right now. The 2015, there are some effort reform of the NEC, National Election Committee. They able to change the constitution. They stimulate the article to have the role of NEC, the selection of NEC in the constitution. And the constitution, Cambodian constitution, they allow the main opposition to select the member of NEC also. So among 9 members of the NEC, at least they have to balance that the ruling party also have the right to select 4. The opposition also have the right to select 4, and 1 is to be consensus among these two groups that who have a seat in the National Assembly. So this kind of NEC in the performance in 2017 commune election was much better than the previous and the current and the election 2018. But however, since this dissolution of the opposition, the current NEC member have really problem because the member of NEC selected by the opposition, they are stepped down, and the reason the ruling party, they select their own member replaced, and now the NEC completely controlled by the ruling party. So this is a problem of the National Election Committee in Cambodia. And the number 5 issue regarding the armed force, law enforcement and judicial system. Cambodia very problem in this part is almost senior official in military, police, court are holding the high position of the ruling party. Even the political party law, election law, and military law, they prohibit them. They cannot become the high rank official of the party, but the ruling party, the CPP, they ignore and they violate this law, and they just promote the senior official of the military, police, court still hold their high position in the political party. Even, for example, the son of Hun Manait, he's the military commander, but you know they promote him as the chairman of the youth wing of the ruling party. So this problem, they are violate of the existing law of Cambodia. Yeah. The number 6 regarding the space of the media and CSO in Cambodia, the space for them is very narrow now. Even the Cambodian constitution guarantee their freedom to association, freedom to expression, freedom to assembly. But however, the situation is, and the space for them is very narrow and very restricted. And since 2017, the many independent media was forced to close the office, to not allowed to stay in Cambodia for example, Radio Free Asia, Cambodia Daily, VOA, they use the pretext of the tax law, administration law. They accuse them that they are violation of the tax law and administration law. And the reason why independent media is not able to come and to open the office in Cambodia. And recent situation, at least according to the one group of the independent media association called Cambodia, they report that around 42 of the journalists were detained and imprisoned, and another 22 journalists were either attacked or threatened with the violence. And currently, at least 10 journalists remain in prison. So this the situation of the media and the CSO also a very, very big problem. According to the current study, they found out that at least 87% of the CSO and trade union in Cambodia, especially their leader, they report that they're so afraid. They do a lot of self censor when they're speaking, when they conduct activity in the public. And 40% of the leader of CSO and trade union, they report that they feel unfree to exercise their right to freedom of assembly. So this is the situation regarding the democracy in Cambodia, deteriorating. So I would suggest the GDF, the Korean CSO, and the Korean government should support our recommendation, the Cambodian CSO recommendation for the minimum condition for the legitimate election in Cambodia, especially the upcoming election in 2022 and 2023 election. 2022 election is a communal election, and 2023 is a national election. The first, they ensure the free political environment, must restoration of the free expression, peaceful assembly, association. The Cambodian government must ensure that citizens, Cambodians, are able to free exercise their fundamental rights, freedom before and during election. And the Cambodian government must hold a political reconciliation dialogue with the opposition, especially the main opposition, and include to do the reform of the law on political party in order to reduce the tension and encourage more open public debate. The second, the need to restoration of the political rights and right to stand for election that allow active participation in political life and right to stand for election, free and drop all the outstanding political motivated charge, especially release the political prisoner, and should pardon and release all individual convicted of political motivated charge without discrimination. Any political parties shall not be arbitrarily arrest and detain. The will of the voter and right to vote shall be respect, protection of the expression of the will of the electorate, and the representative are chosen through the election. Elect representative who win and hold the seat of elect representative, both as individual as member of political party, cannot be removed from their position because of the dissolution of their party. political party law and law of election should be amendment that reflect, protect the will of the voter. Four must be ensure the balanced composition of National Election Committee. The main opposition need to allow to select and review the 4 members of the NEC commissioner, because this according to our constitution that the main opposition have a right to review and select the 4 members of 9 commissioner of NEC. Fifth, must ensure the independent, neutral law enforcement, armed force, and judicial system in Cambodia, strengthening the enforcement of the existing law to ensure that military, police, and court are not politically partisan. Member of military, police, and court shall not hold any position, office to any political party. So they should not have allowed them to carry out the political activity to support or against another political party. Number 6, regarding the role of the media, they must restoration of the independent media outlet, allow them freely exercise their right and role in the democratic society, and all independent media outlets are able to receive license to open their office in Cambodia, and must look at amendment of the law on NGO and allow the NGO have a right to come together without legal constraint and organize collective action, coalition, monitor election, and express the critique on the situation. So thank you for your attention. It's my brief regarding my presentation.
All right. Thank you, Panha, for sharing the situation on the ground and your recommendations that include the minimum conditions for the 2020 commune elections to be held. If you don't mind, I would suggest you to share the advocacy document in the chat box so that our participant can have a look. Next, I would like to invite Yingcheep Atchanont, Program Manager of iLaw, to present the situation and challenges in Thailand. Over to you, Yingcheep.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Compare with other countries, Myanmar, Cambodia, Hong Kong, I would like to say that Thailand maybe is not the worst situation, even though we have a very bad one. But I would like to pass my empathy to our friends in other countries who are facing very, very challenging situation than mine. I'm still being optimistic to my country's future and democracy, even though today we can say that we don't have democracy at all. We are still under a rule of military dictatorship since 2014, but on the other hand, I see that more and more Thai people are now aware of their rights, are now concerned on the political structures and trying to call for democracy, for a better society than we have ever had. Since 2014, when the military conduct a coup, it is obviously seen that they try to do anything they can to maintain their power and try to seize the power for the next 20 years, including they create their own constitution which provide many mechanisms to maintain the military power in Thai politics. For example, they set up 250 appointed senators who have the power to vote for prime minister. They write their own election laws. They create new election system. They select people to be election commissioners, to be constitutional courts, to be all independent bodies. We had an election 2 years ago. In 2019, we had an election, but I don't like to call that as an election. ANFREL also conduct a research and said it is not a free and fair election. I would like to call that election like a performance, like a play that the military try to show to the world that they at least try to have some democracy, but they cheat all the process. They can use government budget to promote their own party. The General Prayut, who is now the Prime Minister, did not even apply for an election. They stopped the oppositions to campaign, and when after the election, we can see that the opposition parties can have more than half of seats in the parliament. Then they change the calculation formula to change the number of seats and took away some seats from the opposition parties and give to a no-name party, and then all no-name parties can vote for General Prayut to become Prime Minister again. General Prayut is now in the new position as elected Prime Minister for 2 years. Because he can seize all power, he can seize power in the parliament with his own appointed senators, and he can send his own selected people to all independent bodies. So it is seen that there is no legal mechanism to change the system or to change the prime minister until the next election, which is coming in 2 years. It was believed that we need only the biggest movement ever in our history to overthrow this regime. And it happened last year when the prominent opposition party, Future Forward Party, was dissolved by the Constitutional Court without any laws that provide the power to dissolve parliament, to dissolve the party. There was a movement first led by students. Students gathered in their own university campus all over the countries, mostly not very big, maybe around 500 people to maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people each protest. Most of the protests were only 3 or 4 hours and then stopped, but it has seen that a new generation of people, young people, are now aware of their rights, and they are calling for their future. They are demanding for change. They want something more, but not this regime. Last year, in the late of last year, we have seen a lot of big movement in Bangkok when those students try to gather up, try to form up a new organization to organize, to mobilize people to call for change. First, they call for constitutional amendment. They call the General Prayut to resign, and later they move the demand to call for monarchy reform, because we know that this government claim that they have to be in power to protect the monarchy, to maintain the this system. So we did call for monarchy reform, and it was the first time in our history that people gather on stage to talk about, to talk to the monarchy directly, to talk to the king directly. There are many activities that people try to send messages to the king, call the king to reform himself. um, to be above the politics, to not exercise his power to interfere politics or to interfere any affairs. It is still a very sensitive issues, because there are also a lot of Thai people who still love and worship the monarchy, and they think that these kind of issues cannot talk freely. We cannot talk about other sides of the monarchy. We cannot criticize the king in public. We cannot even say the real name of the king in public. Then the protester also face challenges from other sides of people who are still loyal to the monarchy. Last year, we have seen a very big movement in our history, and we call that a movement without leaders, because a lot of protests, we don't even know who are the leaders who are leading the protest, who whenever someone posts a poster calling for protest in some specific areas, there will be hundreds or thousands of people gather together. In many protests, there was no speeches, there was no stage, there was no amplifiers, but just like 10,000 of people gather together for maybe a couple of hours, and they went back home. This kind of protest prevent people from being prosecuted under some laws, because there is no clear leader, and prevent people from being dispersed by military or police force, because they gather only in some hours and then they went back home. But this kind of protest also have some disadvantage, because when there was no clear leader, there was no people who send a clear message, there was no people who negotiate, there was no strong demand that what really people want to see and what can make people go home. This kind of protest was very popular last year, and it happened not only in Bangkok, it happened in provinces, many provinces, especially provinces where there are universities. Students can call for some gather, they can organize some creative activities in their own areas. And on November last year, General Prayut announced that the government must exercise and enforce all laws and all sections. Since then, Lèse Majesté law was back in power. Lèse Majesté law is the law that prohibit anyone who to insult, defame, or threaten the king, the queen, the heir, and the regent, with penalty of 3 to 15 years in prison, which quite high. We can say this is the highest penalty for that can use against people's expression. Since November last year, we have seen a new wave of enforcement of Lèse Majesté law. Until today, we can count at least 92 people who got charged in 85 cases. That means some protest leaders got charged in many cases. The most prominent leaders who are still students, named Penguin, he was charged for 20 cases under Lèse Majesté. And we can see many unusual phenomena in the prosecutions in the criminal procedures of Lèse Majesté law. For example, some suspect got bail, and some suspects cannot get bail, even though they submit a bail request for 10 times. Some suspects got bail under some specific condition that they cannot join any political movement. Some suspects got bail in the specific condition that they cannot join an activity that affect to the monarchy, which means they can join other kind of political movement. And there are too many trials. It's a trial to grant bail. The court examine too many witnesses and postpone so many trials until they can decide to grant someone on bail. It took a lot of energy and time. There are also many protests this year calling for the right to bail, and the court scheduled dates for trial on the bail issue many times and postponed many times. Until today, there are still 3 suspects left in the prison, but most of them can get bail now. This year, we waste too much time gathering, calling for the right to bail, and we have not many chances to talk about the demand for change, the constitutional amendment, the monarchy reform, or something else that people want to see. Last year, we can document at least 779 protests that happened all over the country. Most of them led by students, most of them led by young generation of people. This year, only 5 months, we can document more than 500 protests all over the country. But the situation has changed. This year, Thailand is facing a 3rd wave of COVID. And it seems that people are very scared of the COVID situation because we cannot trust our government. We cannot trust that we can have a good medical care if we infected of COVID, and we cannot get a vaccine. Until today, I don't have the right to have vaccine because I'm not qualifying. So people are scared of COVID and they are reluctant to go on street to protest. There are still a lot of people who try to organize something, but this year there are not many people on the street. The biggest protest this year can get maybe around 5,000 people. And this year, police also find some ways to control, let's say, find new ways to control the protest by using some kind of violence. We can see more water cannons, we can see more often of tear gas, and we have seen many times that the police are not reluctant to fire rubber bullets against the protesters. And they also find some ways to accuse that protesters have weapons, protesters use violence, so they can have some legitimacy to use rubber bullets. And we can see some days that when police arrest someone, they brutally beaten people who got arrested with no reason and no accountability. COVID, less mobilization charge, and police brutality, this led to scary atmosphere that people are more reluctant to go on street. So we cannot really have a very big movement this year until now. But I myself truly believe that people, hundreds of thousands of people who gather on street last year are still somewhere in the country. They are still really need change. Most of them are young generation, and we can see that young generation of people are now growing up with with different attitudes, different dilemma from their own parents, from the old generation. They can access to information via internet. They can express their view on Twitter, on Facebook, and they think differently. They are now aware of their rights. They want to see something better in the country, including monarchy reform, including changing the prime minister and changing the regime. I believe that in the coming election, which will be the next 2 years, things will change. The percentage of population is changing. New generation will not vote for General Prayut, will not support the old regime. More and more people will need change. We cannot really fight against the regime easily because they already seize all all official mechanisms in their hands. They issue laws by themselves, they enforce laws by themselves, they can control the independent bodies. So it's not easy to win in the official mechanisms. But if we can still, if we can still keep this belief for the new generation, I think there is a big hope in the future of Thai democracy. But however, this year, under the COVID situation, under the uncertainty of political situation, there is also discussions among young generation of people who are talking about how to move to live in another countries, how to be a citizen in other countries. This is a discussions which is quite popular in our generation this year. Thanks for COVID that we can really travel this year, and we know that the economic is not good in all over the world, so it's still not very easy to move the country now. It will be bad if young generation of people try to move out of the country, but if they stay enough, I think we still have a good hope.
All right, thanks Yingcheep for sharing about the situation in Thailand, and especially about the way of mobilizing people. You know, like nowadays the young people, how they mobilize to the protests. And I think this will be an inspiration for people in other countries as well. Last but not least, I would like to invite Mya Nandar Thin, who was one of the domestic election observers in Myanmar during the November election, to share about the latest development in Myanmar. Nandar, over to you.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Chung Lun, can you hear her?
Hi, Nanda. We cannot hear you.
Hello?
Hi, yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, everyone. Due to the internet connection, I will stop my video, yes, for some time. And I would like to share some of the photo which I just made this morning. Is it okay?
Yep, sure. You can share your screen if you want.
Can you see?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to thank GDF and ANFREL for giving me a chance of participating in this panel and discussion. And thank you, everyone. My name is Nanda from New Myanmar Foundation. And currently, I became as the internet display person due to the current situation in our country. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Firstly, I just want to show some of the photos that happen in our country currently. So within this 3 months, at least 805 people have been killed by the gender, and almost some other people are also missing, and then we cannot get some data. And also some of the dead person are like children and young people. And also more than 5,000 people have been also detained by the gender. And most of them are like the politicians and member of parliaments and journalists and also the activists. So some are disappear, and then there are some night raids in the cities, especially in Yangon and the Mandalay region. And there are some other fighting currently happening in some of the region, especially in the ethnic area. And then the coup is also trying to arrest some of the civil staff and the activists by using arms and some other like the violence weapon. So this photo is the people from the Chin State, one of our ethnic area in the northern Myanmar. There is a fight and there is a civil war in that area, and then the government is the National Unity Government is trying to support them currently, but at the same time the coup is trying to use the plane. It is like genocide people, because so I would like to call them like the terrorist group, because they are using the plane to boom and to destroy the villages and trying to kill the people in our country. So some of the other people, they have to flee to the remote area, into the jungle and into the border area as well. And these terrorist military group, they are also trying to destroy some of the houses to the civilian house, and they enter into the house without giving any information, and they take everything, every belongings, and they take the money and the food and everything from the villagers. So at the same time, some of the young women are also arrested and tortured in the investigation center. Some of the young people and also some of my friends are also dead in the investigation center. Some of my friends have been tortured, and we only get back their dead body just 1 or 2 days. Just within 1 or 2 days, they have been killed by the coup in the prison or in the investigation center. This photo is from the ethnic area, from the southern part of Myanmar, and also from the northern part of the country. So some of the young children, they have to flee from their native and from their houses, and now currently they have to stay in the jungle without having any shelters and food, not enough food, and they have to survive in that place. And then this photo was taken by my friend, and then the young children, he lost his father, and also father losing their sons, and the family lost their member. So that is what happening in our country. And then this photo is like that the leader of the coup, they trying to give them, their soldier, the drug, the narcotic drug, and then after that they lost their mind, and they started trying to shoot to the head, and then they kill the people like this. And at the same time, there are some women and young women. They are also facing like the sexual harassment in the prison or in the investigation center. So that is what we need to speak out rapidly and highly, because after the investigation center, their minds are not like normal, and then they suffer like trauma and some kinds of suffering in their mind. So that is the situation of the country. And then this photo is that the people are having living and staying in the forest, and then they have to share the food. And then yes, and this one is like that the terrorist group did violence and threat to the people, to the civilian in day and almost in day and night. In the daytime, they're trying to arrest to some of the political activists in the street, and also in the nighttime, they came and shot and did some kinds of violence almost everywhere. But at the same time, people of Myanmar are also trying to do some kinds of protests and defense to get our democracy back in the country. Yeah, this is the photo of our board of director. Two of New Myanmar Foundation director was detained unlawfully since March and April. And then their house were destroyed by the coup, and also they were taken to the investigation center. And day to day, over 1 month, we did not get any information from them. And then the coup also made some kinds of lie and fraud that, for example, like in their TV and the propaganda media, they mentioned that these people were arrested in one of the township with the explosive material or something, but actually they were taken from their house, and then they make the torture to their family. And then this one is one of our partner, Wimunai. So he was also detained and then accused with many crime case or something. And then most of the youth from the different states and region, they were shot while they are doing the peaceful protests in their cities. So it is happening almost in everywhere. Yes. So so what happening to us is like, and today, since the first week of February, our life also have entered darkness, because we have lost our freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and also freedom of speech. Most of the journalists were arrested because of their information and their articles in the media. So their house has been searched, and most of the journalists were detained, and then they also have some kinds of torture in the prison. And also most of the people, like the civilian, we have to suffer and we have to live in fear in every day, and we are afraid of like getting detained or killed without having any reason, because we cannot give any reason. They are just arrived to our house and then just take the person, so we have no chance. What is the reason of arrest or something? And at the same time, because of the COVID situation and because of the coup situation, most of our people, especially workers and some of the farmers, they do not have incomes. They do not have any income or enough food in some of the area, and also they face some kinds of insecure way. For example, like the group is trying to destroy or trying to make big fire in the market. In this way, they make the people frightened. And then most of the people are fleeing to the border area, especially to India border and also to Thailand. So most of the people have to run away from their area. And another one is that there are lots of civil servants who are doing and who are participating in the civil disobedience movement. So all of these CDM staff, especially doctors and teachers, and also the professor and scholar, they are also have been accused of doing criminal, and their photos are posting and their photo are sharing on the media that it's like they are wanted. So anyone who found them, they need to inform to the government immediately. So it is like they put the photo of the staff, especially like professor, senior professor and doctor. Their photo have been posted almost in every place. So it is like that they are torturing not only to the protester but also to their family. For example, if someone is not arrested, or if someone is escaping, they trying to take their family member, father or mother or whoever. For example, if I was not found in my house, my mother or father will be arrested instead of me. So that's why I'm running to the border area, my family, my old parents, and my younger brother, he also have to resign from his work, and then they have to hide in one village. So that is what they are currently doing in Myanmar. And at the same time, the coup announced the martial law. Martial law is like from 8 p.m. to 5 p.m. Nobody can go outside. Because of that issue, because of this martial law, we have lost our freedom of movement, especially like we did not get a chance of hacker security or some other issue, and some of the people, they cannot do, or they cannot find any kinds of income. They cannot do any business currently in Myanmar. And another one is like the communication. The internet is blocked since the first week of the February, because the coup do not want to share the information, and then they're trying to block every connection. So as a result, we did not have like any kinds of proper information, and then there are lots of major impact because of this issue, especially in the hacker service and in some kinds of emergency case. And another one is that the military group, it has brutally cracked down the striking civilians. So they are not secure anymore, and then they also cannot stay in their house. For that case, they have to find some other place. But at the same time, some of the family or some of the friend, they do not want to accept the protester in their house, because if one of the protester was arrested, the other people will be a big problem, and they also can be arrested. So in this way, we are losing our life, and also like freedom of speech and also freedom of assembly. Because if we want to do some kinds of peaceful protest, we do not get any kinds of permission. If more than like 5 or 6 people, they will be arrested and they will shoot to death. But in the war media, they mentioned that they are just using like rubber bullet, or just doing with the procedure. But in reality, they are just shot and make the people dead. And at the same time, the family did not get a chance of taking the dead body for the funeral. If one of the family want to get back the dead body, we have to pay lots of money to the cook. So it is like they are not like the military group. They are also like the robbers, and it is like they are behaving like the terrorist people, because they trying to get everything like money, belongings, and also violence to other people. So the quality of democracy in Myanmar is also like declining, and we have lots of like political crisis and more conflict, especially in the ethnic area, but now almost everywhere in Myanmar. So it is like a democracy and the governance assistant is like increasingly very difficult and more crucial, especially like for the especially like Myanmar, in the conflict environment, our institutions are weakened, and the military group trying to block the civil society organization and the union, the student union, and some other labor and farmer union. They're trying to block every organization and every people who want to participate in the protest. And then in the COVID-19 crisis, some of the country, they already get like 6-fire status, something globally. It is in some area, they are 6-fire status. But in Myanmar, because of this COVID situation, the military coup are trying to take power from the elected government, and they're trying to control the whole country, like North Korea, with the support of the China, and they use the weapons and machines to kill the people. It is like they are committing like crime against humanities, and also trying to genocide that situation. And I don't think we can finish if we have to tell the story. So I just would like to move to the recommendations. So I have some recommendation for our participants, Korea government, and civil society, and some other partner organizations. I would like to request to all of the international community to stand together with us, to stand together with Myanmar people in condemning attack on the civilians by the coup. And then please support to Myanmar people in speaking out against all the acts of the intimidations and violence against Burmese citizens. And also, we would like to also request and recommend that international community should support in finding justice for the atrocity crimes with all the effort to restore democracy in Myanmar. And then seek this opportunity to show commitment to the human rights by declaring the full support for the international justice effort. And at the same time, we also would like to request that to support our national unity government and CSO, especially for the human rights defender and protester, in the form of some kinds of emergency aid, which will be very supportive, such as like providing safe house and then basic food, who became internally displaced person in the border area in the neighboring country. And another one is that to support our national unity government in the investigation into the atrocity crime launched by ICC, because we also need the attention to rectifying the Rome Statute of the ICC as soon as possible, because we need to show the world how cruel and how people have been killed in our country. And at the same time, it should publicly call for the member of UN Security Council to refer to the situation in Myanmar to ICC to ensure the comprehensive investigation into the full range of the military crime across the country, and also to support the National Unity Government in order to end the genocide against our ethnic people and Rohingya by ICJ in 2020. And at the same time, we are also trying to find some kinds of evidence to submit to ICC and ICJ. And at the same time, we would like to pursue international justice for the brutal violence by the military against the people in Myanmar. And also to find ways to break the cycle of the violence in Myanmar, because we are suffering more than 5 to 6 decades. And the last one is we would like to request the international organization and community to put the justice effort following first February coup, which covered the full range of crime committed to the coup, including violence against ethnic minority. So in this way, with the support of the international community, we will recover and we can get back our democracy, so-called democracy status within 1-2 days. If the action time is taken so long, the people in our country will suffer a lot, and there will be more dead body within this 2-3 months. So these are the recommendations that I would like to pass to our friends from this forum. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks Nanda for the sharing and the recommendations. I think this is very important for us who are outside Myanmar to extend our solidarity with those who are in Myanmar right now. So I think no matter where you are, please just do whatever you can, and you can demand your government to put pressure on the military junta in Myanmar and not to recognize the legitimacy of the junta. And we hope they can return to democracy as soon as possible. So next up, we have the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in a chat box, or you can turn on your camera and mic and ask your questions.
Hello, can I ask Nanda from Myanmar just some short questions?
Yep, sure.
Yeah, I would like to know that do you and your friends feel safe enough living in Thailand? That's it, or do you need some support for better living here while you are not able to live safely in your country?
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, yeah, it was very difficult for me to cross the border illegally, because in the last decade, even though I visited to Thailand so many times, I was very happy that I can do like some kinds of shopping and attending forum something. But during this time, I'm very difficult because it is the illegal road. So to arrive the border, we have to walk like 2-3 days from the jungles, and very dangerous because we have to hide. That we were worried that Thai police or Thai soldier they will found me or something. But stay okay. I got a safe house from one of my friends. So in this safe house, some of the member of parliaments and also some of the high risk person are staying together, but we are not safe anymore. We are not safe because we do not have any document. So that's why we cannot go out. And one of my friends, they support some of the basic food like weekly. So in this way, we have to survive. But thank you. At least I can sleep very well rather than in my country, because while I was in my country, I'm worried and wake up with the nightmare one day will come and arrest. But now, okay, thank you so much. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Nanda. Aileen, I saw you raise your hand. You have questions?
Yes, yes. I want to answer Nanda for Myanmar. So do you know what's the reaction of the US government? So any of your people or other organization, they speak directly with the State Department or the White House? Like, what's their attitude towards the whole situation? So, and also like the European government. So have you heard anything about that? So any government trying to do something, or they just not interested in the situation and they just let the military continue to run the country? So do you have any information about that?
Our national unity government is trying to meet with all of the international community, including the US, UK, and I think almost all of the country. They also make the group outside of the country to support in this issue. But the thing is, even though we try hard, but I think international community, they want to support. But for most of the issue, I think we need to solve by our own, because it is like the internet affair. But what we hope is like to get the defense technique or some other thing, because I think almost all of you already know about our defense ministry from the elected government. So this defense department is trying to discuss with UK and US for getting some kinds of support, defense thing or something, but it is still in discussion. It is like nearly 2-3 months before the official entity was found. We have been already trying, but I think if EU or US support, but they can only support indirectly. So I think only the elected government have to solve our own problem. So that is what I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your answer. And was there any intention calling for international governments to sanction this military government? So
yes, US and EU and some other group, they're trying to do the high, almost every kind of sanction, but we still need to pressure. For example, like some of the sons and daughters of the Koul Council, they are trying to they are doing business in the European country and in some other country, and also attending some of the university. So the international community and the country, they also should stop. They also should do that kinds of like visa sanction to everyone who is related with the Koul. If not, it is already 60 years. Since 1948, after the independent period, we are suffering for the long time. So if the international community want to support us, they need to do some more pressure to the Koul, including like their source of income. Sometimes some of the business people, like Total or some other the oil and gas industry, the investor do not want to stop their business in the country. But if they continue doing business in the country, it means they are supporting killing people, because with this money, with this benefit, the terrorist group can take, can buy the weapons, or maybe they produce the weapon, and then they can get some more time to kill the people. So the international sanction is also important, not only business, but also to the family or individual who is related with the coup. Yeah, that is our demand. Yeah.
All right. Is there any other questions from participants? So I think if there's no questions, then I think that concludes our session today. Thank you very much to our speakers, Aileen, Panha, Yingcheep, and Nanda, for sharing today. And thanks to the participants of this session. I would like to also invite you to other sessions in the forum today and upcoming days. I'm sharing the link in the chat box. You can have a look. Yeah, so I think that's all for this session. Thank you very much, and have a good day.